What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another action-packed edition of CPA Reviewed, the official podcast of another71.com. I am your humble host, as always, Jeff Elliott, a licensed CPA in the state of Kansas. Happy Tuesday to you. Today is, what is today? July 2nd, 2013. I don't think we've done a podcast since May 29th. I can tell that your life was not the same without me. So, but here I am, I'm back. And someone said to me just a minute ago, don't you know that you're supposed to grow a beard like in the fall and the winter? And I said, well, it's like you have to plant the seeds so that at harvest time, whatever that means. All right, on today's show, you have some questions. Hopefully I have some answers. So here we go. Matt writes, I have the updated 10-point combo for auditing. Do you think the combo will be enough to supplement my studies? And let me time out. Hope everyone enjoys the garage sale artwork that I'm rocking back there. All right. It's a tiger, but someone asked me if it was a liger. So it might be a liger. For all you Napoleon Dynamite fans. All right. Sorry, Matt. Matt writes, I have the updated 10-point combo for auditing. Do you think the combo will be enough to supplement my studies without having to buy another book? Or do I need to purchase updated videos for the Clarity Project? All right. If you have the 10-point combo for auditing, that means you have the Wiley Test Bank, Ninja Notes, Ninja Audio, Ninja Flashcards, and the new Blitz videos. Should you get a book? Yes. If you're studying using only the combo, then you should also probably grab a book. Do you need to purchase updated videos? No. Because the odd 10-point combo covers everything that you need to know for the Clarity Project. So you do not need to buy an updated review course just for the Clarity Project. Ryan says, on exam simulations, can you earn partial credit? For example, if you were working on an income statement and don't present something net of tax, do they look at something, or do they look at the net income number, or do they look at it line by line to see if you did each part correctly? Well, if the blanks leading up to your net income number are numbers that you have to enter in, then you will get partial credit. If you just have to calculate it and then plug in the number, then obviously you wouldn't. But as long as your blanks leading up to it are correct and then you goof up the last number, then obviously you won't get that correct, but you should get partial credit. Cedric writes, in the Ninja method, at what point do you stop doing multiple choice questions and move on to rewriting the Ninja notes? My concern is that I may use up too much time working questions and not leave enough time to rewrite my notes. If you're crushed for time, the most important thing that you can do is do the multiple choice questions, not rewrite your notes. You should only rewrite your notes if you have at least 2 weeks of time before your exam. If you are less than 2 weeks away, do not rewrite your notes. You don't have time for that. So multiple choice questions trumps rewriting your notes. And I'm just now realizing that mowing my yard last night and then doing a podcast is not conducive to not having not sounding like I'm all stuffy. And anyway, sorry about that. George says, I got my score for FAR and I scored a 77. How do you keep the knowledge for a past section if you don't do that type of work? George, you can't. I mean, in theory, you passed the exam, and so now you meet the minimum requirements to serve the public interest. Yay! But reality says people who do audits and only audits, are they going to remember all the ins and outs of gift tax and estate tax that they studied for reg? Probably not. And so people who just do corporate tax returns and only do taxes, are they going to remember all the ins and outs of internal control for auditing? Probably not. And so, hey, you passed. Maybe you look over the materials now and again, but most people don't. So whatever area that you work in, be it audit, tax, bookkeeping, whatever, just be an expert at that. And then if there comes a day where you jump back into tax or audit or whatever you normally don't do, then go back and study that and then go full bore into that. But the stuff that you don't do on a daily basis, I would guess most people don't worry about. Christy writes, for the multiple choice question of FAR, approximately what percentage of multiple choice questions are actual problems, in other words, computation, that have to be worked? I don't think they put that number out, so it's hard to say. So sorry, I don't have a I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it. So just make sure that when you're studying for FAR, that the sections that have computations, that you just study them and know them well. Laura writes in your experience, how much of an impact will the new audit material have on the exam? Well, historically, when there's new information, the AICPA will test it slowly. I mean, it's not like you're going to go in and take this brand new exam on the I think now that I do video, well, actually, you don't see it, but when I'm recording like the Ninja Audio, I'm doing this too. But anyway, it's not like when you go in and take the new auditing exam that it's going to be just this high intensity exam about the clarified auditing standards, because they're still testing both ways of doing things. And so I think they will implement things slowly, and sure, they will test on it, but I think that if you know the minor tweaks between the two, so how the audit reports have changed, some of the terminology changes, which I outline in the Ninja Notes and Blitz and Ninja Audio, but I would not stress out about it. If I were taking the exam, I wouldn't worry about it. I personally would not be worried about it. I would just know the differences, and that's it. Diana writes, I want to complete the exam by the end of 2013. What sections would you recommend that I study for first? Based on my time frame, should I try and complete 2 sections in one window? So this is the beginning of July, so you can take an exam early August, take another exam late August. So you have September to study, take another exam mid-October, take your last exam late November. Do I think it matters what section you take first? No. All else being equal, I would take FAR first. Or maybe you take auditing first, because it might be in Q4 that they test more of the clarity stuff. So after they have a whole window to look at the data and see how people are responding to the questions. So maybe take auditing in July and August. FAR and auditing July and August, Reg and BEC October, November. Snehal writes, what is the best way to study for Reg? I have the 10-point combo and the Wiley book. So in other words, you're not using a video course. Read the Wiley book chapters. Take notes, work the questions. Read the Ninja Notes whenever you can. Listen to the Ninja Audio because you have it. Every time you get in your car, every time, if you're sitting at your desk working on spreadsheets, listen to the Ninja Audio. You got the Ninja flashcards on your phone or your desktop. So just treat the Wiley book like you're going through a video course, but you're just reading the chapters instead of having some instructor read it to you. Agatha says should I start studying before I schedule an exam or schedule and then start studying? I think that people who study but don't schedule their exam, they don't have like a target date, so they never get around to taking the exam. They drag it out. They drag it out over a couple of windows. Schedule so that you have a definite goal. It's like, I'm not a runner. I hate running. It's because I could go into how I had asthma as a child, but who cares about that? But I'm not a fan of running. But if I were running for if I were preparing for a race, if I didn't have a goal, my butt would not be out there at 5 a.m. running. Okay, but you have to have a goal. Once you have a goal, then you start sacrificing. You're not going to sacrifice if you don't have a goal. So set the exam and then do it. Ruby says, I just took the reg exam and went through all 4 testlets, but clicked on quit instead of submit at the end. I received a confirmation letter that I took the test when I signed up from Prometric. Will my test be graded? Will your test be graded? I think so. Is there anything to do at this point? No. But would I worry about it? No. Mariella asks, I'm planning to take FAR at the end of August. Do you have any recommendations to supplement my studying? I'm getting the 10-point combo light, but I don't know if I should get a book. Yes, you should get a book. She says, I have an old review book from 2011. Trash it. I don't know if there's any changes that have taken place. Since 2011, I don't remember. There's so many updates. But get a 2013 book. You're getting the 10-point combo light, which comes without the test bank. So maybe you get, unless you already have study software, you should get study software. So you get the full combo. So have there been any changes to FAR starting in Q3? No, not in 2013. So if you have the updated, if you get the 10-point combo, you're good to go for updates. Get a book. You're good to go. Sam says, I work for a Big Four. Do you know whether passing the exam on my anniversary date is considered passing within 1 year? In other words, eligible for $5,000. I don't know. I'm not a Big Four alum. So I would go to the another71.com forum. There's a lot of Big Four people on there. And ask. They would know. Jen writes, what is your advice for a career-changing adult with no accounting experience but is hoping to find a job after passing the exam? Well, assuming that you pass the exam by sometime in Q4 2013, like your local mom and pop CPA firms, they are gearing up for tax season. And so if you want to get a job with no experience, there's no better way than to jump in during tax season because that's when they need you. And then just do a really good job, and then hopefully they'll keep you for the rest of the year when they don't have as much of a workload. You can do your 941s, 940s, sales tax returns, bookkeeping, all of that good stuff. But that's the best way. Tax season is a great time to get a job. And I think from everything that I've read, the job market right now is booming. So it's a great time. The job market is booming for accountants, CPAs. Jess asks, if I'm a licensed CPA in one state, can I refer to myself as a CPA in another state? Or I'm not licensed? No. That's a big, big no-no. You cannot do that. As a matter of fact, if you hold yourself out as a CPA, you need to be specific as to what state, because it's not a national license. It's a state license. And so you have to be very specific about what state you're licensed in, because different states have different rules about being licensed and all that good stuff. And different states require an ethics exam. So if you want to refer to yourself as a CPA in another state, go through the reciprocity process and cover yourself. All right, well, that was, how long was it? That's 15 minutes. Hey, 14. Well, okay, 15 questions in 15 minutes, so I need to do one more. Danielle writes in, sorry, Danielle, your name's not Daniel. Danielle writes in, how do I regroup after a 70 on FAR? What do you concentrate on, or do you just start from the beginning? Unfortunately, I had credit for 3 sections, and now I have credit for 2 since I didn't pass FAR. I don't care if you score a 50, a 70, or a 74. You have to go back, start over from scratch, and redo everything that you did to get that 70 or to get that prior score. Redo everything that you did to get that score, and then do more. So get a cram, do multiple choice questions. You have to do more, but you cannot just, hey, okay, I'm at a 70 today and do a little bit more, because you're not at a 70 today, you're at a 0 today. Well, actually, that's not true. You could probably roll in and take the exam and, I don't know, without studying, score a 50. I once took audit without studying and scored a 69, and I was pretty darn proud of myself for that. My NTS was expiring. But, no, you have to start over, don't cut any corners, start from scratch, et cetera, and add on to what you previously did. All right, everyone. 17 minutes, not bad. Have a good week. Send your questions, jeff@another71.com, or go to another71.com. Click in the upper right-hand corner, Ask Jeff, and it will appear in a future edition of the podcast, or call the podcast hotline, area code 323-834-9132. That's 323-834-9132. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks for watching. Your life is now complete again because the podcast is back. So take care.